Welcome to another very special Hornbill TV explainer. I'm Alnguli. Imagine you are having a scrumptious meal of smoked pork and akuni and just washing it down with a nice movie. Then this strange, tall, dark man in a black suit and dark glasses walks up to you with a smile. He looks like you shouldn't mess with him. He hands you something without saying a word. You open the letter and the next thing you know, you are in jail. I'm just playing with you with a particularly Bollywood Masala James Bond driller movie imagery. But I imagine that's what most people might be thinking if they ever did something stupid with serious money and this government agency comes visiting you. I'm talking about the enforcement agency, the Indian Central Law Enforcement Organization that's currently keeping politicians busy. Never has there been a time when the enforcement agency was employed as extensively as it is being used by the central government during the past 5 years in India. It's almost every day that the enforcement agency seems to be constantly going after politicians, big businesses and big businessmen, companies, political workers and political leaders. Today we'll be talking about what the enforcement agency is all about and its history, its work, and we'll be talking about some of its functions. But before that, let's have a look at some of the Enforcement Directorate cases that continue to take a large chunk of media space in the country. On Saturday, the Enforcement Directorate summoned Delhi Chief Minister Mr. Arvind Kejriwal yet again for questioning in the excise policy case. By all counts, this is reported to be the fourth summons issued to the Aam Aadmi Party leader. He has been asked to appear for questioning on January 18th. He is just one of the many opposition leaders that have been issued summons by the Enforcement Directorate. The AAP, which is part of the opposition India bloc, had announced earlier this week that Kejriwal would be traveling to Goa for the Lok Sabha related party work between January 18th and the 20th. The Delhi Chief Minister gave his reasons for not heeding to the summons. In response to the agency, Mr. Kejriwal referred to the Rajya Sabha elections, Republic Day preparations and work, and what he had termed the ED's non-disclosure and non-response approach as the reasons for his not appearing for questioning before the agency. It is often that opposition leaders summoned for questioning call the Enforcement Directorate a puppet of the ruling government. Ladies and gentlemen, they have often termed these summons illegal and unconstitutional. An AAP leader, the party's Delhi convener, Mr. Gopal Rai, also accused BJP of sending the fourth summons to the Enforcement Directorate to stop the Delhi Chief Minister from preparing and campaigning for the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. Another case. Let's take the case of Jharkhand Chief Minister Mr. Hemant Soren. Soren has also been constantly summoned by the ED. After several refusals to appear before the agency, he has written to the Enforcement Directorate stating to record his statement in a land scam case at his official residence on January 20th. The agency had issued Soren its 8th summons on Saturday, asking him to join the investigation between January 16th to the 20th. Sources had said on Monday that Soren had agreed to questioning. Now, the Enforcement Directorate had previously issued a summons to the Jharkhand Chief Minister's press advisor, Mr. Abhishek Prasad, to join its investigation on January 16th. The case relates to an investigation into an alleged money laundering operation linked to an illegal mining case again. The agency concluded its day-long search of Soren's media advisor Prasad's residence in Ranchi on January 3rd. Here, it must be noted that the ED issued the Chief Minister a last opportunity to record his statement in this regard. Soren in turn replied to the agency, calling the summons illegal. Now, because he had not come to the office of the Directorate of Enforcement in compliance with the summons, according to the agency was giving him a last opportunity to record his statement under Section 50 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002. Unlike spy movies and drillers, the Enforcement Directorate is a law enforcement agency and an economic intelligence agency that's responsible for enforcing economic laws and fighting economic crime in India. Now, the agency is part of the Department of Revenue, that is part of the Ministry of Finance of India, and the agency is composed of officers from the Indian Revenue Service, Indian Police Service, and the Indian Administrative Service. The total strength of the department is said to be fewer than 2,000 officers. Out of this number, approximately 70% of its officials came from deputation duties from other government groups or organizations. Now, the agency is administered by the Department of Revenue under the Ministry of Finance. Its headquarters is in New Delhi. It has other regional offices across the country too. The agency is led by the Director of Enforcement, one who is an Indian Revenue Service officer. Now, the Directorate of Enforcement is a multidisciplinary organization that has been mandated with investigating money laundering activities and violations of foreign exchange laws, and these are practically all economic offenses. Here's an outline of their work, ladies and gentlemen. The statutory functions of the Directorate include enforcement of a number of acts. First, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002, or PMLA. It is a criminal law enacted to prevent money laundering and to provide for confiscation of property derived from or involved in money laundering and for matters connected with it. The Enforcement Directorate has been given the responsibility to enforce the provisions of the PMLA. They can do so by conducting investigation to trace the assets derived from proceeds of crime, to provisionally attach the property, and to ensure prosecution of the offenders. And also they can confiscate property by a special court order. The Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999 is another legislation that the enforcement agency functions under. It is a civil law that has been enacted to consolidate and amend the laws relating to external trade and payments, and to promote orderly development and maintenance of foreign exchange market in India. The Enforcement Directorate has been given the responsibility of conducting investigation into suspected contraventions of foreign exchange laws and regulations, to adjudicate and impose penalties on those adjudged to have contravened the law. Third, the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act of 2018. This law was enacted to deter economic offenders from evading the process of Indian laws by remaining outside the jurisdiction of Indian courts. It is a law whereby the Directorate is mandated to attach the properties of the fugitive economic offenders who have escaped from India and warranting arrest. The Enforcement Directorate then provides for confiscation of their properties to the central government. The formation of the agency goes back to May 1st, 1956, a long way back. The government formed a unit called the Enforcement Unit in the Department of Economic Affairs. They were to handle exchange control laws, violations under the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act or FIRA. However, today the Enforcement Directorate is a multi-dimensional organization investigating various economic offenses as stated in the aforementioned laws. An example of their work is park money and illegal proceeds. When proceeds of crime such as property, money are generated, the best way to hide is by parking it somewhere, generally in foreign countries or hidden accounts. There was a need to control and prevent the laundering of money, for which the PMLA was brought in 2002. The objective was to prevent parking of money outside India and to trace the layering and the trail of the money. The ED has the power to investigate under Section 48, which relates to authorities under Act, and Section 49, which relates to appointment and powers of authorities and other officers. Now, if money has been hidden abroad, the PMLA court can send a letter under Section 105 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. The government can then share the documents and evidence the agency needs. Interestingly, whenever any offense is registered by a local police station which has generated proceeds of crime over and above, say, Indian rupees 1 crore, the investigating police officer forwards the details to the agency. As you may have read in the news, the agency raids properties and searches them. The officials then seize money or documents or any other incriminating materials in this regard. The Enforcement Directorate can conduct these activities after it has decided that the money has been laundered under Section 16, which relates to power of survey or search, and Section 17, which relates to search and seizure. Then the authorities will decide if arresting the person is needed in accordance with Section 19, which relates to power of arrest. Under Section 50, which relates to the powers of the authorities regarding summons, production of documents and to give evidence, etc., etc., the Enforcement Directorate can also directly carry out searches. They can also seize material evidence without summoning the person for questioning. According to what I read up, it's not necessary to summon the person first and then start with the search and seizure activities. If the person is arrested, the agency gets 60 days to file a charge sheet, as the punishment under PMLA doesn't go beyond 7 years. Now, if no person is arrested and only the property is attached, then the charge sheet along with the attachment order is to be submitted before the authority within 60 days. The Enforcement Directorate is a very busy agency. According to government updates, the central government has informed the Supreme Court earlier that the agency was investigating 4,700 cases as on date. Approximately 313 people have been arrested in connection with alleged offenses since the enactment of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The total amount covered by interim orders of no coercive action passed by the courts in such matters is approximated at about 67,000 Indian rupee in crore. 67,000 crore. Thank you for watching Hornbill TV. I'm Al Nguli. See you next time.